Okay, and then go to the slides. Okay.
I think they're only going to see the
Maybe. Hopefully that'll work out. All right. Oh yeah, yeah. Yeah. Yeah, we'll do that. It's actually recording now, so like we should like get this started. All right, we'll cut this out. We'll fix this in post. All right. So some of you might be wondering, how do I make good games? I have no idea how to start. Boo-hoo. All right, so I'm going to tell you exactly how, but I'll start with an example. This is a company called Relude, founded in 2003 by three students from the Helsinki University of Technology. Nicholas Head, Jarno Vakhevainen, and Kim Dickert. Very uninteresting company. This is their Wikipedia article. It shows the different games they've made. Yeah, who cares? Like, what are these games? Yeah, so I don't think that much of these games, and I don't know if they did either. But you know what? That didn't matter. They just kept making games, and they kept doing it until one day in 2009, they made a game called Angry Birds, because Relude was the company that became a company called Rovio. So I hope you learned a lesson from this, not to judge people, and also to know that. Quiet. Anyway, the point is that you got to keep making games in order to make good games. So that's the secret. The secret to making good games is making lots of games. And it's sort of like playing golf. Like once in a while you get a hole in one, but really getting a hole in one is a matter of luck. And the more you play, the luckier you get. So keep playing golf, keep swinging. It's sort of like Angry Birds also. Like when you sling the little bird through the slingshot, like it flies at this random angle and it might hit it and it might hit it in the wrong way, but you got to keep doing it and you get better at it. Yeah. So uh, so I'm gonna get into how you keep motivated, being creative, and how you stop procrastinating, and how you keep making those games that'll one day have a hit on your hands. So, step one, motivation. Uh, it's not that I'm lazy, it's just that I don't care. Once in a while, you're going to run into some problems with motivation, and I'm just going to get into some techniques on how to stay motivated. Um, so, there's a story of Stephen King where he used to have his desk in the corner, and he would write all his books that way. But one day, him and his wife were rearranging the furniture, and they said, "Why don't we just put the desk in the middle of the room?" And they're like, "Okay, let's try that." And then he just sat down to work, and it seems perfectly normal. But no matter what he did, it just wouldn't work. He couldn't get anything down. He just couldn't focus. So what he did was he moved the desk back in the corner of the room, and that's how he started doing work again. So you just got to find what you like in your surroundings and how you prefer uh, your time and place to be. Um, Sometimes you might not be able to work at home. Sometimes you need to work in like someplace outside of your place, like at the school library, or I work in the trans lab a lot of the time. So you got to find your place in the world. Um, Also, you have to find your time. Some people are like morning people, and like when first thing they get in the morning, that's when they're the most productive. I'm not like that. I'm more of like an evening or afternoon type person. So you got to find like sort of like what's your peak hours uh, or when you can do the most work. So it's about knowing yourself. And another thing to keep in mind is not everyone is always going to like what you're going to do. It's not just going to be people on the internet who have nothing better to do with their time but post rage comments on your website and send angry emails to you about like how your game's not balanced or how they die too easily because you made the game too hard. It's also going to be people that are really close to you. Some of your closest friends and family aren't going to like what you're doing, and you just gotta know that. It's not going to be easy, but you just have to know when to pick your battles. And there's sometimes not only when other people aren't going to like what you're doing, but when you're not liking what you're doing, they're going to quit wanting to make your game. Uh, there's just so much of the game development process that like you're not going to enjoy. Like you're not, like some people enjoy every single thing, but that's not the majority of people. Like some people only like certain aspects of it, some people only like other aspects of it. You got to know what you like and what other people, uh, and how you're not like other people. Like, uh, and like it's just going to be this uphill battle where it seems like it's going to be impossible to ever get anything done. This is the an image of the myth of Sisyphus, where he pushes a boulder up a hill, and it's quite difficult. And I tied that with a quote from Herman Cain, quoting the Pokemon the movie 2000. Uh, Life can be a challenge. Life can seem impossible. It's never easy when so much is on the line. That Herman Cain. So you just gotta keep working. Um, so another story I have to tell is I went to New York Comic Con last year, back in the fall, and they were talking about the sound design of the game, and they were working on the sound of Batman's cape opening in Batman Arkham City, and internally they called it the Wachunk, like and they were just working on this for such a long time. And they had to work on different sounds of Wachunks. Like the Wachunk off a building sounds like the different sound of when you Wachunk off a chair and stuff like that. So you got to watch out for working on something for too long. Like when they were asked how long it would take them to figure out when they would know when they got the right Wachunk, they said, "We don't know. It could have went on indefinitely. If they didn't have a deadline, they would have just kept working on it forever. Just endless Wachunks." So, so one lesson you got to learn from that is that your game is never going to be perfect. You got to, if you're a perfectionist, you got to sort of break that habit. You got to like set a deadline and get things done. Um, there was a paper about something called decision quicksand, in which the more time you spend on a decision, the more difficult it seems. But the more difficult a question, a problem seems, then the more time you're going to spend on it because you're like, oh, it's so difficult, I got to spend more time on it. So you just sort of get in this never-ending loop. It's recursive. Um, so this was demonstrated when they had this survey, like asking which airline they would like to choose, and they give all this information about the airlines. But there were two groups, and the information was exactly the same. The only difference was how they made the font of reading the questions. And the people who got the font that was harder to read would end up spending a lot more time on trying to figure out which airline they would want to fly with. And they just got stuck in that quicksand pit. You got to watch out for that. So even a simple decision like you might get at the grocery store one day and like you're trying to choose a toothbrush and there's just like tons of toothbrushes everywhere. So like the more time you spend on that, realize that you're just gonna like uh, overthink a problem that's probably very simple. This is a quote by Leonardo da Vinci: "Art is never finished, only abandoned." And the most ironic thing about that quote is that it was also said by George Lucas, who was known for remastering his Star Wars movies and not abandoning his work. So, but the point of that is try to have deadlines, try to know when to stop and when to break that perfectionist habit of yours. Um, Another thing you got to do is release. It's going to feel so good after working on something for such a long time that you finally get it off your chest and put it out there. And when you do that, you also get feedback from people. You actually know, did I actually do something good? Uh, you're not going to just uh, work on something for a long time and then forget about it. Like you need to know what people think of it. Um, don't just hold it in and just look at it yourself and just think, oh, I need to work on this more. Because put it this way: If it takes you a month and it's not good, it only took you a month. But if you take 2 years to work on something and then it flops, that's something that might like nuke them forever. Like if you work on something for like 10 years and it's like the worst thing in the world, that might make you just quit making games or like doing anything at all for the rest of your life. So get on a release schedule, have deadlines. Um, as a result, not all of your releases will be breakout successes, but you got to keep this mindset about you on how to approach things. So the way this was put is when I read an article was put in terms of mastery and effort versus performance and skill. Uh, I read this article by Dr. Professor on this website called Pixel Poppers on his favorite game genre, RPGs. And he realized that RPGs are these epic stories in which you're the hero that saves the day and saves the world. But he realized that these games aren't really hard at all. Um, and he would just feel like he was the hero, when in fact it was the characters in the game that were the hero. He enjoyed the feeling that he was accomplishing something, but he didn't enjoy the effort that it would take to really uh, something himself. Um, so he took a child psychology class, and the way they put it was mastery and performance orientations. So when he was raised, he was told that he was smart when he did well, and this is the wrong way of going about things. When you do well, it's better to be told that, oh, you must have worked really hard, because if you're told that you're smart when you do well, then you sort of have this idea, oh, I didn't put in that much effort. I did it because I have natural talent, and I didn't have to work that hard, so that means I'm a really good person. But if you put in a lot of effort, it sort of like cheapens that, you know? Like, the more effort you put in, that means like, oh, I had to try harder. That means I didn't have natural skill. I didn't have natural talent. So you got to approach things from uh, mastery perspective rather than I'm smart and I'm naturally good at it. Because if you fail and you're approaching it from a performance perspective, then it's like, oh, I'm stupid. I can't do anything about it. But the people who approach it with a mastery attitude say, oh, I'm just not trying hard enough. People who keep trying at it, even when they fail, are the people who succeed. So, why do we fall? So we can pick ourselves back up. Uh, so there's a video I want to show you about this kid who. Well, I'll let it be self-explanatory. Uh, right. Oh, in the computer. Okay. So hopefully you've learned a lesson from him. I think he's a better public speaker than I am. Uh, so if you fall, keep practicing. You'll learn how to ride a bike someday. So you're trying to make games, but wait a second, I'm not that creative. You might have the coding down, but you're running into these creative issues, like you're trying to work on this design aspect, or you're not really figuring out how to like solve this problem you're working on. So I'm going to help you solve your problems in a few easy steps. Um, So one way of looking at it is this story I read in Psychology Today about this innovative. Well, let me put it this way. Uh, there was this company that was commissioned to try and help these swimmers better times in a swimming competition. But they just kept trying to improve how they were swimming and their technique, and like maybe their locomotion wasn't good enough, and they were doing simulations, and they realized this isn't going anywhere. We got to look at this another way. So they thought, wait a second, what if our problem isn't making the person swim better? We're just making them move through the water better. Then they started thinking, oh, so maybe we could reduce the friction, and maybe we could look at different things that are really good at swimming. And they looked at sharks, the kings of the sea. They have this really interesting skin quality to them that makes them dart through the water much better than other animals. And so they set about to copy this quality of skin texture for their swimsuits. And as a result, their swimmers did incredibly well, and the product was called Fast Skin and was an incredible success. So the lesson behind that is sometimes you just got to rethink the problem from a different angle. Don't hit your head against a brick wall. Try to go around the brick wall and find another way to solve your problem. Um, Another lesson from that is if you don't know weird things about sharks, you're not going to be able to make weird shark suits. So you need to have a good body of knowledge as a basis for when you're trying to rethink a problem. So do research. Don't stop learning. Um, just like Shigeru Miyamoto's habits, he's like doing all these crazy things, and Will Wright doing all these crazy readings. Uh, don't stop learning, uh, and don't stop with just like what I'm telling you. Of course, read on your own. I'm going to be posting links to all the sources I've used for this talk, and keep reading, keep watching, and keep listening to resources online, and try to live an inspired life. Some other good habits. Try to find a partner you're comfortable with. And I don't just mean in relationships, like intimate relationships, but when you're working on games as well, or in your professional work, try to find a good match for you. Like, try to know if they like get your sense of humor, or like if they have this good, if you have this good rapport with them. If you're making games at a company that you really don't like and you don't believe in what they're doing at all, maybe it's not a good fit. Um, if you're trying to meet with somebody to do a project for school, try to make an effort to find somebody that you would like to work with. Um, that is that is something that is priceless, and you might make a friend of a lifetime with that. So try to find a good partner. And with your good partner, you can try to externalize some of the problems you might be thinking out in your head. Like you might be thinking, oh, I don't really know how to like think like like outside of the box and like rethink this problem like with the shark skin stuff. So you want to talk it out with someone smart, and just like maybe it's all in your head, and it's sort of like going back and forth, and you're just not really going anywhere. So try to find a person you can just do a little back and forth with, or even just someone you can talk to and just get all your thoughts out of your head, rather than just they don't even need to talk back at you. Like sometimes I call my brother and ask him about coding problems, and he has no idea what coding like he might know a little about coding, but like he has no idea what I'm talking about when I talk to him about coding problems. But it's still just good to like, oh, I'm working on this and I don't know how to do it, but like maybe if I work on this and this and this, oh, okay, so it works out. And then he says to me, well, I didn't really feel like I helped it all. I'm like, no, you did. So so sometimes you just need to get your thoughts out. It doesn't even have to be a verbalization on how you get your thoughts out. Sometimes you should just like write it down, and you're like even the act of writing it down and like getting your thoughts on paper sort of like helps jog your thought process a bit, and like the need to like think something through in a way that you're able to write it down helps you think about a problem. So, uh, but in general, other than just writing out things you're doing, try to keep notes on things in your daily life. You'll never know when a thought of brilliance might hit you. So try to keep a notepad or a note app on your phone. Like I use Evernote. Um, never know. Like write about what you dream about. Write about just like weird thoughts during your day. Like, oh, that's a weird thing. What if like this garden hose was like getting longer and longer, and then like it just turns into an elephant's trunk or something. I don't know. Like stuff like that could make awesome. It could be awesome for like this weird art thing for a game or something like that. Try to practice like thinking out weird thought processes. Like take a simple idea like a mechanic, like rotation, or like oh I see like this the way this water falls it like flows or something like that. Like I feel like I'm talking really abstractly, but I hope you get the idea of what I'm talking about. Try to take simple ideas and running with them and see if you can get like some sort of game mechanic through with that or some sort of art design idea going through. Um, and then there's just some general universal health advice tips. Eat breakfast, sleep well, exercise. I barely do any of those three, but I know I should be because those would help me a lot. Breakfast in the morning is like the best meal of the day. That meal looks amazing. I wish I could eat that every day. Um, but you should Uh, first thing in the morning, you're going to be low on energy because you've been sleeping and you've been just digesting all the energy in your body. So you're going to like drink a glass of water, hydrate yourself, maybe drink some orange juice, and maybe drink some orange juice instead because it's got the carbohydrates to like give you energy and eat a hearty meal first thing in the morning because that'll like keep you going throughout the entire day. Sleep well. Uh, you're going to need sleep. Like I know you are computer science students and all, but try to sleep on a regular schedule for the most part. Maybe if you have a sort of deadline, you can do one all nighter, but don't do like all nighters for like playing League of Legends or something like that. Uh, Sleep is important. Uh, I also use a sleeping app on my phone called Electric Sleep. It keeps track of my sleeping patterns and it like knows when like it uses the accelerometer to detect when I'm like making motion in my sleep. So like it tries to wake me up at a time when I'm like in this good phase of sleep to be like awoken easily. Um, Sort of works sometimes. But like that's probably because like I don't have good sleeping habits in general. Yeah, yeah, there's stuff like that too. Yeah, look into that stuff. Those might be incredibly helpful. Um, Exercise that gives you energy, that makes you feel fit, makes you feel confident in yourself, and it gets your heart pumping. And uh, also, something I didn't touch upon. All these three things. Sometimes when you're stuck on a problem, maybe you should just go out, get something to eat, or take a nap, and maybe dream about it, or you go out for a walk and just clear your head. You'll find yourself thinking about the problems, even when you're not even trying to focus on it in front of a computer screen. So try doing that. Um, so this is a talk by Elizabeth Gilbert on a way to think about creative problems when I don't know how we're doing with the volume on this. Um, can you guys hear it? It can be a long, like a bit, like a few minutes. How's the volume? Okay, okay. Really hard to hear. Okay, so I don't need her. Um, so basically, there would be these people. So this is about having divine inspiration and what to do with it and what to do with yourself. So there would be these people in North Africa who would go out and dance every day and uh, they would just try and enjoy the dance. And then every once in a while, they would see something amazing in someone's dancing. Like, they would do exactly what they would normally be doing, but then some days they would just be inspired and be transcendent. And they would say, to celebrate this, they would say, Allah, 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 which means God, God, God. They would see basically a glimpse of God in these people's dancing. And hopefully, uh, and this transfers over to Spain when the Moors invaded Spain, and they would uh, the Allah 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 would become Ole Ole Ole, and basically that would celebrate whenever somebody would do something transcendent. But then the day after they would have that transcendent dance, like the morning after, they would say to themselves, "I don't know if I'm ever going to do that ever again in my entire life." But you know what they do? Just go back on stage and keep dancing. They put on a show. The show must go on. Maybe it'll happen again, but it's not going to happen if they just sit in bed and feel like it's never going to happen again. They just got to keep at it. So don't give up. You'll have your show one day, uh, and just keep at it. So the next thing I want to talk about is procrastination. I know I have problems with procrastination. It's a very easy trap to fall into. But it's hard to say if there's a surefire way to stop procrastinating. And I'll just give some little pieces of advice that might help you with it. Hopefully, you'll get something out of it. And if you don't, then maybe you'll get something out of it tomorrow. So I'll start with a quote by Sun Tzu. It is said that if you know your enemies and know yourself, you will not be imperiled in 100 battles. The important thing is that if you know yourself, you know exactly what to do to respond to your enemies. You know when to retreat. You know when to advance. You know when to outmaneuver them, and when you can outmaneuver them. Um, if you don't know yourself, then you will be imperiled in 100 battles. If you don't know like what you're capable of and what your natural inclinations are, then you're going to put yourself in danger. Um, so that applies to why people keep making New Year's resolutions. Um, right. So you keep telling yourself, I'm going to do better this year. I am going to change my life. And then you feel awesome. You're like, yeah, I am going to change my life. This is going to be the best year ever. And then you drink and then you pass out. And then the next morning, you're like, I don't feel like doing anything. So don't be that person. Do something about it. Don't just be all talk and no show. Um, uh, there's psychological studies done on people who say that they're going to do amazing things with their lives, and that might actually feel better than actually doing something with their lives. Like actually doing something and doing work to like get things done feels terrible because work is hard. Um, it's true. Uh, but actually saying like I'm going to do something tomorrow feels awesome because in the future you're this big amazing Ubermensch that can do anything you want in the world. Um, but today you're nothing, and if you keep doing that to yourself, then you're never going to be anything. Uh, or you're just going to say yourself, which might be awesome. You could do better. Um, so this applies to Netflix. Uh, in Netflix, if you look at people's Netflix queues, they always put in stuff that they want to watch in the future. And they always put in stuff like Citizen Kane, Apocalypse Now, Space Odyssey 2001, and they're like, yeah, all these movies are going to be great when I watch them in the future. And then they're like, okay, I'll put that in the queue for now, but now I'm just going to watch Caddyshack or I'm going to watch Dumb and Dumber, and like this is going to be awesome. But but I'll watch it tomorrow. Like I'm not ready for it now. I'll just like put it off. If you ask a person, like they did a study, they asked people if they wanted to, uh, if they wanted to watch an amazing movie like that, like, and they were given three choices: a movie to watch today, a movie to watch tomorrow, and a movie to watch next week. And they would always choose the kind of lowbrow, like easygoing movies that don't require a lot of thought today. And they would always choose something maybe a little more advanced tomorrow, and then like later on they would choose something really advanced. Um, and like that's true in everything. Like you're always going to tell yourself that I'm going to do something amazing in the future, but like I'm at the checkout counter and I see candy bars and I'm just going to grab M&Ms and Hershey's. Um, but I buy some fruit. I'm like at the grocery store. I buy some fruit and then I leave it at home and it rots. I never get around to eating it. I tell myself, yeah, I feel awesome buying this fruit, but I don't feel like eating it because it doesn't taste that good. So I'll just eat it tomorrow, and then you keep doing that to yourself. You're like, oh, it's gone, so I'll just throw it out. But you ate the Hershey's bar, didn't you? Why'd you do that to yourself? Um, so there's this. So how are we gonna do this? This is a marshmallow experiment. This will be in the video when I edit it. But for now, I'll just speak. There's a marshmallow experiment where they offered children uh, a reward, either a pretzel, a marshmallow, or a cookie. Uh, and they were told that if you wait a few minutes, you'll get double. All you have to do is just wait and sit in this room with it. And um, a third of them would just eat it right away. Um, but but only a certain number of them would be able to actually wait out the time and actually get double the reward. Um, but the trick was is that the kids who ate it right away did stuff like, oh, I'll just smell it and oh, this is good. Okay, I'll put it back down and then oh, maybe I'll smell it again. Squishy. Okay, maybe I'll just lick it a little bit, and then they're just like sort of teasing themselves, like, or like they of course they're not going to be able to resist. They want it, and they're just sort of like making them want it even more. But the kids who didn't indulge and actually waited out the time actually thought of like some interesting methods. Like they would like twiddle their thumbs, or they would look at the clock, or instead of looking at the clock and think about the time, they would distract themselves by looking away, or like they would like untie their shoelaces and tie them up again, or something like that. Like they would just find ways to distract themselves and not think about it. And those kids who would realize that if I just don't think about it and distract myself with something else, because I know if I just indulge in it, I'll just like I'll just not be able to handle it. Then that weird. I'm not sure. You get the idea. Like if they don't, if they actually did, like knew that they would have problems dealing with it, then they'd be able to approach the issue better. This is a long quote, but basically, the psychologist, when he began analyzing the results, he realized that the low delayers, the children who rang the bell quickly, ringing the bell means they want to stop the experiment and get the reward right away, more likely to have behavioral problems both in school and at home. They got lower SAT scores. They struggled in stressful situations, often had trouble paying attention, and found it difficult to maintain friendships. The child who could wait 15 minutes had an SAT score that was, on average, 210 points higher than that of the kid who could only wait 30 seconds. Um, so the people who are better at this metacognition and realizing their own thought processes would have better management of their own lives in general. Um, and it's not just a thing that you're born with, it's a thing you can acquire too. Um, so don't trust yourself. Uh, know that you're going to go on a website or know that you're going to play a game and block the site from yourself or uninstall the game or just or like get out of that house where you don't have the game. Go to the computer lab or go to the library or try to like make it such that you can't even like let yourself indulge in your impulses. Uh, uh, try to catch yourself. Like realize you're thinking, okay, I'll just play a little bit, and then just wait a second. What am I doing? I'm playing again, or I'm going on Facebook again. What am I doing? I have work to do. This is the third time I'm doing it today. I'll just like maybe your surroundings aren't very good, so maybe you should just go to somewhere else, like maybe a different part of the house, or like maybe like a different study place, or maybe like you're just in a place with too many distractions. Maybe your friends are always coming over, and then you're like, okay, I'll hang out with them for a bit, and then you realize, wait a second, they hang out all the time at my house. Maybe I should go somewhere else instead of place. And force yourself. Uh, uh, the more you realize that you're uh, doing something stupid, uh, try to like punish yourself for that in some way and stop yourself. Because the more you, actually, the more you just think about how like I'm doing something that's wasting my time. If you actually think about what you're doing when you're wasting your time, you're gonna feel disgusted with yourself. That's good enough by itself. You don't need to do any tricks like spinner boxing or anything like that. If you just realize that what you're doing is like a waste of your time, you're gonna find better stuff to do with your time anyway. Um, but try to treat work like weightlifting. You're not going to be able to lift 300 pounds on your first day of weightlifting, and you're not going to be able to do like 10 hours of work right away, even though you know you're a procrastinator. Try to do little bits at a time. Work your way up. Do little reps. Try to like do maybe like an hour session or like maybe a 10-minute session, and like and see if that works out. And then you're like, okay, I can do 10 minutes. So I'll keep going. Maybe an hour. Okay, I can do an hour. And maybe 2 hours. No, I can't do 2 hours. So try to like say, okay, I can do an hour and a half. So I'll just do an hour and a half, then take a break, hour and a half, then take a break. You know, sort of like rests between doing reps. Uh, so try to like know what you're able to do and what you're capable of, and get a feel of what uh, uh, your maximum weight lifting capabilities are. Um, and like I said, if you just tell yourself you're going to do these things, you're never going to do them. But now, as soon as I'm done talking, I hope you actually want to do something with your time. No, no better time than the present. Um, so much of life is spent in waiting. Stop waiting. Do something now. So one thing that was important that I touched upon was finding your place, finding your environment, knowing where you are. And this is true on a more metaphysical level also. Find out where you are in your life. Know where you want to, try to have an idea. You don't have to know exactly where you want to go, but try to like know what you want to do. The ultimate motivation for work is having a purpose and reminding yourself of that purpose. If you think about that every day, you'll just naturally sort of start doing things that you want to do. Um, and that should be all the motivation you need. There will be moments where it'll feel like you're just pushing a boulder up a hill and it just comes tumbling back down again. But why do you run into these problems? Why do you fail? Because you have to pick yourself back up, and then you just put on a show and you lift weight. That didn't work out as good as I was hoping it would. But know what you're capable of and learn from your mistakes. Don't give up. Keep putting on a show. Romeo didn't give up, and look where they are now. So before I told you that Stephen King had problems working with his desk in the middle of the room and uh, put it back in the corner because that would help him, uh, there was a reason why he couldn't work with the desk in the middle of the room. And it went with this quote. Okay, so cut off a little on the bottom, but I think it starts with this. You put your desk in the corner, and every time you sit down there to write, remind yourself why it isn't in the middle of the room. Life isn't a support system for art. It's the other way around. Uh, desk was in the center of the room, as if it were this idolization that everything should focus and surround his work. But life is not like he didn't view his life like that. The reason why he wrote was because he loved doing it. He had a passion for it. Um, he went through. He had a family. He had a wife and kids. He lived in poverty. He didn't like his life was pretty much in the crapper He's had his first breakout hit, but that didn't stop him. He just kept writing because he loved to do it. Uh, Life isn't a support system for art. It shouldn't be about trying to make your life, uh, make your art better. It should be about finding joy in your art to make your life better. Don't waste my time to say this. Don't. The secret to making games was failing and making lots of bad games. The secret of staying motivated through all those failures is love for the work. Don't do it for fame because, or don't do it for fame or fortune because you can always disappoint yourself when you fail. Make art because you love the craft. If you love what you're doing, then you'll never be disappointed in what you're doing. Thank you. So, any questions? Questions? All right, let's just get going to work. All right. I like that attitude.